In 6 days, Casey Anthony is expected to leave her Orange County jail cell where she's been for nearly 3 years. Many of you are very upset by the verdict, wondering how she could be found not guilty of murder. The jury foreperson said he was unconvinced by the prosecution's evidence surrounding the duct tape as the cause of death. We wanted to get more information. We asked Casey's defense attorney, J. Cheney Mason. We interviewed one of the jurors, actually the jury foreperson, and what he said was the reason behind the finding was that the prosecution couldn't prove to them beyond a reasonable doubt the cause of death. And I asked him to explain to me this duct tape because it's hung up a lot of viewers. And could you explain to me, because we don't have the photographs, where was the duct tape on the remains when the remains were found?
There was no duct tape on the remains except for part of the hair mat on the lower right side. The other duct tape, piece number 3, was found about 8 or 9 feet away. There was never any evidence of duct tape being actually placed across that child's mouth or nose. That was a figment of Mr. Ashton's imagination.
So that I fully understand this. I don't want to get too graphic, but unfortunately in courtrooms you do. I mean, this is evidence. The skeletal remains, it was just bone that was found. Is that right?
Yes. Bones and hair.
And hair.
Right. And
so the tape, the duct tape that was found was on the hair but not attached to any part of the bone in the face.
That's correct.
Was it a distance from the face, or couldn't you tell? I take it was photographed right at the scene.
Well, these photographs are subject to question themselves, particularly if you place any credibility at all on the testimony of the man who found the remains. He moved it twice. I mean, he lifted the bag some 4 feet off the ground and said the skull rolled out. And then when he came back, he lifted the skull with a meter stick. That's kind of graphic for your audience as well. But the bottom line is, if he had any credibility at all, the skull had to be moved a couple of different times. And so the pictures that were taken that you just shown there a minute ago was the medical examiner investigator reaching down purportedly to pick the skull up. We don't know whether he actually was pushing it into the ground or how he moved it, but there was no tape on it. The big issue was that there was a total failure to find any forensic evidence whatsoever on the tape. And more importantly, if you remember, the only partial profile of DNA that was detected absolutely excluded Casey, and also excluded Kaylee from having contact with that tape. So that's a mystery in itself. It has not and never will be solved, I suppose.
What I thought was, I talked to Jeff Ashton, the prosecutor, and I asked him whether, she disappeared in June or died in June. There was a phone call in August by the meter reader, and then the remains were found in December. I asked him if the remains had been found in August when that first phone call was made, whether there would have been more forensic clues which would have indicated cause of death. He said even that was too late. Do you agree or not agree?
I don't agree. It's possible, but again, it's possible. That's what kind of indictment in case we had. The fact of the matter is that the child was alive on June the 16th and was seen with grandfather and so forth, the videotape. You know, if the sheriff's department had done their job, I'll always wonder why they couldn't do the slightest thing. Mr. Kronk, not known to any of these people, not involved in any capacity, he called and told them he found the skull. He told his co-workers that were with him he found the skull. It was located only 19 feet from the edge of the pavement. How in the world a detective, a deputy, any law enforcement officer responding to that, particularly in light of the profile of this case? The world was looking for a little Kaylee. And a man says, I found a skull in a location that's around the corner, you know, hundreds of yards actually from the Anthony home, the first place they should have looked. And I understand they did look and found nothing. So, but the bottom line is, how can you ever explain a deputy not insisting, saying to Mr. Kronk, show me what you just found, point to it. It's only 5 paces away. And if they had done that and done their job properly, they would have recovered the remains. And there certainly would have been a better chance of forensic evidence detection. There would have been significantly more marrow in the bones. There would have been more tissue with the skull and the hair mat. There would have been flesh easily adhered to any of the tape if it had been put across her face. And so to say that they wouldn't have is that's a cop-out. That's a CYA. They could have, they should have.
In terms of your client, she gets out of jail soon. I'm curious whether or not you have concerns about her safety. I'm sure you've seen the public outcry about the verdict.
I've seen the public outcry about the verdict, and it's pretty saddening to know that we have so few educated citizens in our country that don't respect the Constitution. You and I have both seen that before, however, and I'm just devastated by the people who have attacked the jurors. Shame on them. Perhaps there's a place in Iran for them to enjoy their flavors. The bottom line is that the jurors have been threatened, the lawyers have been threatened, our teams have been threatened. There's a lot of, it's very discouraging to say this is 2011 and we have so much of our citizenry that really don't deserve to be, frankly. And
is she in danger? Is she at risk?
I'm sorry?
Is she in danger?
Of course she's in danger. I mean, not right now. She's still in jail, but Casey can't go anywhere. Who's not going to recognize her? That's the most recognizable face in this country, probably, next to President Obama. I don't know where she's going to be able to go, and we're not telling, and when or how or where. She's going to have problems for a very long time, I'm sure.
You know, from the outside, you know, I just see the case from the outside. I don't know your client, but those 31 days to me were absolutely deplorable. Her conduct, partying, tattoos. I mean, the words are indescribable. But I'm curious, your viewpoint of your client.
Well, what I know of Casey, she's an incredibly likable person, despite the lynch mob mentality on the street. To talk to her just a few minutes is to like her. She's very bright, very articulate. She's got guts. She's as tough as they come. And all I can say to you is that we did have an expert talk about how people grieve differently. And I found it very interesting listening to that testimony and people being somewhat skeptical about it. And, one of the people on my team, sitting right there at the table, had just buried her grandmother the day before. That expert testified, and nobody knew that she was grieving. I knew about it, but there are no visible signs of it. So, you know, Greta, people do things differently, and unusual, absolutely. Abnormal, absolutely. I mean, I had all the same questions, and everybody I know had the same questions you did.
Well, I appreciate you for joining us. I know that that's certainly a lot of questions to be asked about this. Hope you come back, because I'm sure this case, regrettably for you, is not going to go away.
No, not anytime soon.
Thank you, sir. Coming up, only 6 days until Casey Anthony walks. But what is going on with the Anthony family? First, Casey threw her father, George, under the bus in court. Then Casey's mother, Cindy, took the witness stand to defend Casey. But now Casey won't even talk to her mother. Our legal panel is back. That's next.